this. So just want to say thanks again. We have a couple of questions. One, actually, it's a little bit tricky, and in some way, I think you already covered it. Samuel asked, like there is a lot of barrier, especially for migrants to get support when it comes to financial barrier. But you already mentioned that in the last slide of your presentations. But is there any other way that you have come across with migrants, or they can make some sort of like a payment arrangement? And in general, how much, like from the fees could potential be? Lena and Harry.
I think, well, with legal aid, so if you qualify for legal aid, then that's fine. The Ministry of Justice will cover all your fees. If you don't qualify for legal aid, then there are a lot of firms who do payment arrangements, particularly in this area, if I can be honest. I know for my firm in particular, we do payment arrangements because we appreciate that bills can rack up quite quickly. The fees that you're looking at for a lawyer in this, and I can only really speak to South Auckland because that's the area that I'm in. You're looking at anything from $175 an hour up to $350 an hour. So we appreciate that it's expensive, but and from my firm's perspective, what we generally do is we do sort out payment arrangements, and we try and frame it around the needs of the family. So obviously, if we know that you've got 4 kids to support and you're barely scraping by, then we kind of adjust it to assist, all right? In terms of how much it costs to go through court proceedings, it really depends on how complex it gets. To file a standard application for a protection order under legal aid is about $620. So yeah, it really depends on what's going on.
And that's just the application itself. So that doesn't include the lawyer's hours in which they take or they've expended to put together the application. So I mean, that's just the minimum figures that we're putting out there. So you can see how much of a barrier it can be, especially for our migrant families as well, especially during such time. But that's just what, $620, and then if you're on a $350 per hour kind of basis for a lawyer, then you can easily see how it can be in excess of $1,000 just to file an application, including the lawyer's fee as well. So, but mind you, these fees will vary throughout the country as well and throughout the region. So just touch base with your community law centre first, and then just probe, ask them about, are there any affordable family lawyers in which you guys can recommend within our area, or even the CABs, or I mean, pay us the hustle and just search around. I know some family lawyers will offer pro bono, so free services as such. But yeah, it just pays to kind of ask around, and we always encourage people to start with your community law centres first and foremost, see if they have the capacity, or ask if they can put you in touch with affordable family lawyers. But that gives you an insight in terms of just the cost, just to even get an application through when it comes to that. So.
Yeah.
Thank you. And the second questions I have here is, are there any financial support available to veterans on partnership visa to enable them to leave the family violence situation? I think especially around benefits like from work and income. That's
I am aware, and to be fair, I don't have the most up-to-date information, but I was aware that WINS did offer emergency benefits for a period where there had been proven domestic violence. I'm going to be honest, I'm not entirely sure whether that's still available, but it's another one of those things. I'd get in touch with WINS and explain the situation. Quite often lawyers will happily write letters to WINS saying, this is the situation. These people are on visas, they've got no financial income, we really support them to get benefits. So there's always these kinds of special categories that we can ask for. But the lawyers should be more than happy to kind of write support letters for WINS to access any kind of financial support.
Yes, the difficulty with with accessing support from WINS is that there's generally a residency requirement in order to be eligible for it, and that was kind of the beauty of the second visa that we spoke about, was that residency, special residency visa. So if you apply for that and you're eligible, and then you're granted it, then you're eligible to apply for assistance from work and income. What COVID highlighted were migrants and people who were in this particular category were unfortunately left out by the system, and we had no particular financial support for them. They were often instructed to go back to their consulate or particular things to seek assistance from government. And unfortunately, the numbers of migrants that we dealt with were just supported by community organizations that were given, food packages, but there was no actual financial assistance guaranteed under law, only unless you've got residency status, in which, that proviso was made. So unfortunately, if they're only on a work visa only, and they're not New Zealand citizen or residency, that's the most difficult situation, because the only recourse that you have is to write directly to the minister, like we actually said, and appeal on humanitarian grounds. How long does it take for, generally for residency visas to be granted?
How long is a piece of string?
Yeah, it varies, It honestly varies, And I wish my immigration consultant was here, because she deals a lot with immigration in New Zealand. There's a lot of kickback because it went online, but the backlog was so substantial that there were just interim visas that were granted just to, tie over to things. But to be honest, we can't give you an actual figure. It's something in which we can look into and get back to you. But I'm sorry, we can't give you a definitive even estimate in terms of how quick these turnaround visas are, especially in light of COVID now. So you don't necessarily know exactly to the extent in which the time frame.
Yeah, and but what I would say is when we've got people who are applying for these special visas or work visas, we really encourage our families to be quite upfront with immigration. Tell them what's going on. Just because, realistically, they're in this situation. We don't want anyone getting deported right away. So we always just encourage them to be quite open. If they need support letters from lawyers, again, your lawyer should be able to do that, right? To ones give you letters for immigration, just to kind of give some context as to where your client might be in the course of proceedings. But yeah, in terms of timeframes, like immigration, the court system is much the same. How long is it going to take? How long is a piece of string? There's no, just depends on what's going on at any given time.
There's certain situations as well. Say, for example, someone's come on a work visa and they've split with their partner who's come on a partner visa, and then they can inform Immigration New Zealand that they're no longer in a relationship with that particular person on a partnership visa, and then that's when they can obviously apply themselves, especially if they've been victims of family violence for those particular two special category visas.
Sorry, Lena. Yeah, please go ahead.
What I will say is, it's the one thing that I forgot to mention is with the applications for protection orders, if they're done on a without notice basis, they're processed within 24 hours. So if there is an urgency to the court process, your lawyers are able to get them quite quickly for you. So yeah, that's just something to be really aware of, is that if the matter is urgent, lawyers can apply to have them dealt with very quickly. You can apply for a protection in the morning and have it by that afternoon or by the very next day. So that's just something to be aware of as well.
Oh, thank you. That's really useful information. And I have a few people asking for the PowerPoint to be shared. Would that be okay with you both?
Yeah, just a casual $1,000 per slide. The community law centers have no money, so that's like we said from the outset. Hey, a part of our role is to educate and inform not only our community but you guys as practitioners. So absolutely, feel free to share. And like I said, my role is legal educator, and certain law centers have legal educator positions or people that do that. So we can come to your respective organization and present on not just these issues, but tenancy, different vast range of issues there, because real reward or the real, I guess, investment is an informed community, a protected community in this sense, that our migrants understand their rights and are protected and able to make informed decisions as well. So more than happy to share.
Thank you. Thank you. I just have another question. So in regards to if there are dependent children involved, is there anything that the victim can apply for, anything on law, and any law that can provide child support from the spouse that is the perpetrator?
Yeah, so the Child Support Act automatically kicks in. So once parents have separated, the Child Support Act kicks in, the victim can apply to IRD generally. So if they go on a benefit, they're automatically required to collect child support. But yeah, you can go straight to the IRD and get those papers filled out. And again, that kind of leads into what we're talking about is if your client is getting the sense that things are going a little bit tricky, we really suggest that they start collecting birth certificates and passports and stuff, because that's all going to be required should you apply for IRD. Yeah, so that's fine. That kicks in right away.
If they sense that the relationship's heading down a family violence kind of path, have those documents ready to go, whether you're applying at work and income or immigration. It's just so it makes it all the more simple, all the more easy for them to apply.
For supports. Cool.
Thank you.
I think one of the things that I just wanted to add on to what Shirleen was saying earlier is, about this approaching counsellors and stuff and making sure that you've got people who are really understanding of the situation or the cultural ethnicity. The same goes for lawyers. When you're taking your clients to see any lawyer, make sure that your client feels comfortable with them and that lawyer is responding to their specific needs. It's something that all lawyers across the country are actually required to do. We have to be culturally sensitive. We have to have an understanding of diversity. So if the lawyer that you've gone to see with your client isn't feeling that, then I suggest that your client goes to somebody else, because it's, a lot of the stuff is very sensitive to talk about, and you want to make sure that they're comfortable, because we're going to be delving into the deepest, darkest areas of their life. So always make sure that that the client feels okay with the lawyers, because we ask some pretty hard-hitting questions, and it's just about making sure that the lawyer suits the client, not the client suiting the lawyer. That's all I can really suggest.
Cultural competency and being aware of the cultural appropriateness and traversing those norms, like I said, you'll be covering topics that are real taboo. And so if you're a support worker for your client, try your best to investigate and see, and just ask. There's nothing wrong with asking, hey, are there any particular lawyers who have dealt with this matter? And then are there any ethnic ones that are kind of cognizant of the situation as well? So yeah. Just answer this question by Joe in regards to citizenship. If your child is born basically after 2006, the 1st of 2006, January I think it was, or might have been June, your child would inherit the parent's residency status or the parent's citizenship status. So say, for example, even if I had my child here in New Zealand and I was a Samoan national, for example, I only had a temporary residency visa, your child doesn't get automatic New Zealand citizenship. They only inherit what their parent's current residency status is, if that makes sense. So yeah, if your parent is a New Zealand citizen, then obviously the kids will receive whatever their status is at the time of birth. Make sense? Hope that makes sense, Joe. Yeah.
Thank you. I just saw a question pop up. You say if the PO is contested against the respondent during the time frame after filing, what are the requirements of the victim? Would the victim have to do anything further? Would they have to go into the family court?
Yes. Yeah, they do. So what you would do is you file the application is then served on the defendant. If the defendant decides that they want to put forward a defence and have the protection order removed, they are required, the matter will automatically be set down for a hearing, at which time the victim will need to attend and basically have the protection order dealt with. So they do have to go to court. The family lawyer should obviously welcome any kind of support people that the victim needs. It's a very collective and supportive environment that the family court tries to provide, but they will need to go to court.
Yes, so with Rizwana's question in regards to what type of resources are available in the regions, I can only speak from a community law perspective. So I know that there is one in Hawke's Bay, if you are from the Hawke's Bay, if I recall correctly, but then each region would generally have what we call like a bar or an association or a fraternity, like a family law bar in that respective area. Maybe it's just to give them a call, just to give them a call if it's family law, investigate the particular kind of area in which you specialize in. And generally there's like a family bar out south over here, which comprises of all the family lawyers. So it's good just to give them a call and just say, hey, look, we work with migrants. Are there any particular services that are applicable to our area? Or are there any, I guess, lawyers in which they can just come in and provide this professional development and these kind of seminars for our respective areas, and just to foster that relationship. So can I speak to that little bit in regards to the resources that are available in the regions? But yeah, if you're in the regions, contact your local district law society and see what particular resources they have in your area.
Yes, so I've been working in the space for a while, and basically there is very little that is appropriate for our community. Yeah.
Are you talking about in terms of support systems or access to legal
support
aid?
systems. And access to legal aid is quite difficult as well, because there are so few people that offer it.
Yeah.
If you're basically down the line.
Yeah. And that's entirely correct. I will say as well that following on from COVID-19, a lot of the law firms have actually gone digital based. So say for my firm, we take applications from all around the country and we do it like this. So that these options are now available. So say if we have clients in say Christchurch or Mangere or places where there aren't a lot of lawyers, and we basically give them advice like this. So it's about knowing which law firms offer those services. We have systems like that because we've had to after COVID.
So I can contact you guys if a particular law firm needs some sort of advice around this.
So sorry, can you repeat that again? You're a bit
Sorry, the reception is not very good here. So can I contact this organization if there's anybody in the Hawke's Bay that needs some advice or resources or anything around this?
Yeah.
You should.
Thanks. Sorry. Yeah, thanks.
No, absolutely. Well, I think what you've touched on is a key issue, and it's unfortunate because justice, and not just justice, but social services have had a huge underinvestment in
the region
the past decades, and especially in the region. So a lot of focus is on the metropolis and the big cities, but in the areas in which you're speaking of, it's unfortunate.
Yes, I had to send women to Oranga, Auckland, Christchurch, because we don't have that facility here as such, and the resources here, and it makes things quite difficult because, apart from being uprooted from your home, you also uprooted from your work, the children's school, so it makes things a lot difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we just encourage get in touch with your local community law centre. If it's a legal issue, there should be a Hawke's Bay for legal fraternity or a bar, what we call a bar or like an association. And if your services are a particular area of law or family law, then encourage you just to make yourself known to them and then just foster that relationship, because then from there they might be able to assist you guys. Whether it be virtually, like how we're doing today, or in person if they are local in nearby. But yeah, unfortunately, it's just it's symptomatic of fighting across the board.
Thank you. Yeah, it is a real struggle down here, even you know, with regard to you know, communicating with the police. So thank you, Shirleen, for that circle, you know, that wheel that works hand in hand with that, because now I can help to add that to my presentation to the police. So just for a better understanding of the space.
You're welcome. Thank you. I just have a question privately sent to me. So for relationship property issues, if the client have no funds for that, are there any other support systems in place to help the client in regards to relationship property issues?
There are legal aid lawyers that do relationship property, although there aren't a lot of them, I'm going to be honest. We don't, I know personally at our firm, we don't do relationship property on legal aid, but what we do offer, and I'm talking about my firm and a few firms in the area, well, what we can offer is what we call balloon payments. So if there is a property involved that needs to be sold as part of a relationship property division, what we can do is take payment upon settlement. So those kinds of options are available as well.
Right. Okay.
I'm very aware of the time, but if we can have just one last question, which is on what ground can family violence visa be granted under humanitarian consideration? If the perpetrator is on temporary work visa, spouse and children would like to stay in New Zealand without having to depending on the husband work visa.
I actually have a case that's entirely around that circumstance at the moment, where both, so dad's here on a work visa from South Africa, mum's on a partnership visa, and they've got 2 young children. From what I understand, mum's made an application to immigration and produced all of the stuff that we've given her in terms of protection orders and all of that. But immigration's advice has realistically been that she needs to find work and apply for a work visa in her own right. But the humanitarian consideration is that they've allowed her to stay on the basis that she looks for work and applies for it in her own right. Just with the provision of this is where her children are and they need to stay here and all of that. So this situation's actually very common. It's a matter of mum being able to make her own application in her own right to remain.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we just have to remember that if they're only on a work visa, they can't access those 2 special categories because the perpetrator's not a New Zealand resident or New Zealand citizen. So sometimes it's just a letter to the immigration minister, pray that the humanitarian grounds are accepted, and then it just goes from there, unfortunately. So, and they might just grant them a 1-year visa just to get them on their feet to kind of sort out their affairs moving forward. But it really lies in the hands of the minister and their delegated representative.
Sure.
I've got a success story from the regions. I had this lady about 2 years ago that was on a partner visa. And anyway, because of the lack of resources, we sent her to Tauranga Shakti, where she stayed for 3 months. And we were very, very lucky that her employer gave her that unpaid leave, but paid her, I think would have been the first employer here in Auckland paid the domestic violence, you know, the subsidy. And when she came back, she had legal aid. She got part of the property. When I sent her to Tauranga, she couldn't speak much English. She came back speaking a good level of English. And she continued to work. She's now living, you know, in a flatting situation. She would never have thought that she would do that 2 years ago. But today, we started her nursing degree at EIT. And I went to see her. So, yeah, we have got minimal resources, but we have got good success stories as well. And I think for people working in this space, we should be celebrating and acknowledging the good stories that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so critical, man. Like we bring to the fore these respective stories, because as you guys can imagine, if we've been subject by all this like heavy stuff, it's always good to take a moment to reflect on the success stories, especially when we realize the challenges that our community face, not only in terms of what our clients face, but also the resources and the challenges that you've already pointed out. So it's always good in reaffirming to hear these respective success stories. So, but I am cognizant of the time, unless there was anything else. It's basically us on our end. It's been a real privilege to be able to share this knowledge that we just acquired maybe last night at 12 o'clock when I was calling you. We were just trying to panic and put together this presentation, but we do hope that it is of some use and value, not only to yourselves, but your respective clients. And like I said, feel free anytime to message out, not only to community law centres, but to Lena and her colleagues and the rest of the legal fraternities within your respective areas to help serve our respective communities. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Lena. I just want to, on behalf of AFS, again want to thank Lena and Harry for taking the time out to give this really crucial piece of information. I'm sure all of us will use this information in some way or another. So thank you so much. And thank you everyone who's joined in to listen to the talk. And thank you, Ivan, as well for the technical support and the admin support. Really appreciate it. Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone.
All right. Cheers, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ivan will send out the slides and get everything to everyone. So thank you very much, everyone. Take care and enjoy the rest of your week.